Is NASA wrong? Why the heck is NASA still keeping Boeing Starliner while SpaceX is running well? SpaceX continues to create history. The third long-duration astronaut team launched by SpaceX to the International Space Station safely returned to Earth early last week, splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico off Florida to end months of orbital research, ranging from space-grown chilies to robots. Meanwhile, their main competitor continues to struggle. Boeing's second chance to test launch its troubled astronaut capsule to the International Space Station was delayed again, possibly until the middle of 2022, as NASA and the aerospace giant go to new lengths to investigate problems with the spacecraft's fuel valves. Now, we know that raises all kinds of questions in your mind, but don't worry, because today in our video, we'll walk you through why NASA is insistent on funding the Starliner despite its failures and SpaceX Crew Dragon successes. Let's address the elephant in the room. What has made NASA go in this direction and still trust Boeing? Well, watch till the end if you want to know the answer to this question and much more. So let's begin. The latest postponement adds to the woes of Boeing's Starliner spacecraft, a striking contrast with SpaceX, the private company founded by Elon Musk. Its passenger spacecraft, Crew Dragon, has lofted crews to orbit 4 times in the past 2 years, with a 5th scheduled on Halloween. The Starliner capsule came within hours of launching to the space station on an Atlas V rocket in August as part of a 10-day test mission without humans on board. The goal was to demonstrate that the spacecraft was safe enough to fly NASA astronauts. But some of Starliner's fuel valves, supplied by Aerojet Rocketdyne, a maker of rocket engines, didn't open up as designed during a last-minute launch prep, prompting engineers to roll the rocket back to its tower and eventually the capsule back to its factory. We had no indication that there was going to be any problem with these valves, John Vollmer, the manager of Boeing's commercial crew operations, told reporters. The valves are part of an ornate network of plumbing in a detachable trunk called the service module that houses Starliner's propulsion gear. The components worked during previous tests, including a trial of the spacecraft's emergency abort system in 2019, Mr. Vollmer added. Boeing has yet to determine what caused the valves to become stuck. Engineers were mulling whether to bring in an entirely new service module, but Boeing recently decided to keep the existing one, Mr. Vollmer said. The current guess at what caused the valve issues involves moisture that accumulated near some of the valve's Teflon seals. But without any clear culprit, the company now plans to ship 2 of the valves to a NASA center in Huntsville, Alabama for a forensic CT scan, using machines similar to the ones used on humans to detect diseases. Boeing built Starliner under a NASA contract worth $4.5 billion. It was part of a NASA program known as Commercial Crew, which is designed to stimulate the private development of 2 competing space capsules capable of ferrying astronauts to and from the International Space Station. SpaceX received its own contract worth roughly $3 billion, and its Crew Dragon capsule carried out its first uncrewed flight to the space station in 2019. Boeing's first attempt to launch an uncrewed Starliner in December 2019 failed to reach the space station because of dozens of software glitches, some of which had to be repaired while the spacecraft was in orbit. Starliner would have suffered what officials called a catastrophic failure had engineers not been able to quickly correct some of the software issues, a NASA panel of aerospace safety experts said at the time. The company spent 18 months making roughly 80 corrections to both the spacecraft and the Starliner team's internal safety culture, as mandated by NASA, and Boeing took a $410 million charge in 2020 to launch Starliner again for another uncrewed test. Boeing is also bearing the cost of Starliner's latest delays, Mr. Vollmer said, without saying exactly what that cost is. I'm not expecting any changes to the government from that side, he said. The NASA safety panel suggested in September that the agency and Boeing retool how they examine the spacecraft's readiness for future flights. We got very close to launch without identifying the valve issue, said George Nield, a panel member and the former head of the Federal Aviation Administration's Commercial Space Transportation Office. He added that there were rather significant differences in how the 2 entities examined issues before launch. Mr. Vollmer said his team is taking up the panel's suggestion. Will we do something different? That's exactly what we're looking at, he said, adding that engineers might decide to load Starliner's propellant closer to launch or find ways to mitigate moisture. Finding the video intriguing? We still haven't told you why, despite all of these setbacks, NASA is choosing to back Boeing's Starliner project. We would like you to take a guess at what it could be. Is this all intentionally planned? think about it for a while. But while you do subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to receive instant notification about all our future videos. Soon, NASA will bring astronauts to the moon for the first time since the Apollo 17 mission in 1972. However, it seems that the space agency does not only rely on SpaceX as a lander on the moon. NASA wants other companies, beyond Elon Musk's SpaceX, to propose new lunar landers on its Artemis project. The project aims to put humans on the lunar surface again. Under this new approach, NASA is asking a US company to propose a lander concept capable of transporting astronauts between lunar orbit and the lunar surface. This is for the mission beyond Artemis 3, which will land the first astronauts on the moon in more than 50 years, said NASA. Now, NASA will ask all private sector companies to propose a lunar lander concept, rather than building it themselves or relying solely on SpaceX. This strategy accelerates progress towards sustainable, long-term lunar capability by early 2026 or 2027, said Lisa Watson-Morgan, a program manager for NASA's Human Landing Systems program. We hope there are 2 companies that bring astronauts safely on their landers to the lunar surface under NASA's guidance before we call for service, which could result in many experienced providers on the market, he added. This is the same policy that has led NASA to continue its support for Boeing in order to avoid being overly dependent on SpaceX, despite Elon Musk's company doing far better and being far ahead of its competitors. This policy might just pay off because Boeing is finally ready to test Starliner again in space. The commercial crew spacecraft is set for test launch, dubbed Orbital Flight Test 2, no earlier than May 19th, as Boeing seeks to certify its Starliner vehicle for future NASA astronaut flights. Liftoff will take place from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, NASA said in a recent statement. The test will be an opportunity for Boeing to once again simulate a mission to the International Space Station. Starliner will ride atop a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket, as Boeing seeks to ready the spacecraft for launch, docking, and return to Earth operations. This mission will be the second attempt for Starliner after a flawed OFT-1 mission in December 2019 and numerous technical problems with OFT-2's development. A July 2020 NASA review of Boeing's first problematic test flight, which failed to reach the orbiting laboratory, identified 80 necessary corrections to deal with the glitches and software issues that underlay the mission's difficulties. Ongoing troubleshooting of the valves, along with a busy launch schedule to the ISS, both contributed to pushing the mission back into 2022. But by the end of 2021, engineers were able to say the leading cause of the anomaly was moisture interactions with the oxidizer, creating corrosion that sealed the valves. The Starliner team in part addressed the valve issue by switching out the service module with one from an upcoming flight, originally planned for its crew flight test that would have had astronauts on board. That said, the current May 2022 launch date aligns with the expected timing the team predicted by end of 2021. It seems that NASA's plans to continue putting their faith in Boeing and keeping all their options open by not relying entirely on SpaceX for all their missions might end up paying off in the long run. So, do you think NASA's policy of diversifying the outsourcing of its missions is smart or foolish? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to watch more of our amazing videos, then stay tuned.